Thank you very much for attending the, oh, Ray Wall's here. He's a very important person. That's good to see. Right. I'll just wait for him to join. So thank you for joining. I'm Toby from Ealing and Hounslow CVS, and I run the Housing Campaigning Project. This project is covers both Ealing and Hounslow, and the aim of this project is to increase the voice and ability of BAME and other vulnerable groups in the two boroughs to be able to campaign for housing. Just letting a few more people in. So the project's been running for over a year now, and so I thought it'd be a good idea just to recap a little bit on the project. So during the first year, we have trained lots of groups, given them the skills to be able to campaign for housing. We have carried out lots of training in things like community consultations and co-production and other skills that have helped on a day-to-day basis with regards to social media training and report writing, things like that, everyday skills. So that's been, and we've been running these quarterly meetings where we have been focusing on particular areas of this meeting in terms of liaising with the council, and it'd be great to find out from the council how things have developed. The two areas we really wanted to focus on was making sure that planning information was in community languages. And the other area was for Ealing to have a local housing plan and a defined quota of social housing, because at the moment it's only affordable housing. Really to not use that phrase anymore, so we can see about numbers of social housing. So those are the areas we've been focusing on, and over the past year we've had a whole range of really interesting speakers, and today we also got very interesting speakers. So before Sharon from the London Tenants Federation starts, could everyone just take a moment to put in the chat their name and where they're from, just so I can, we've got evidence of that. I'm just going to let some more people in. So, Sharon, I'm just scrolling across to see if you're here. Not as of yet. But I see Suze, you're here from Social Housing Action Campaign. Would you mind going first?
Not at all. I mean, do you want to, are you doing introductions first, or do you want me just to kick off?
We normally just launch straight into it, actually, because
okay.
we've got so much to discuss that, and when people ask questions, they normally introduce themselves then.
Okay, lovely. Okay, well, thanks very much for having me. We're always really happy for any opportunity to, firstly, the most important thing obviously is being able to build links with other organisations that have are concerned with housing in general and social housing in particular. But also obviously to talk about the campaigning and the activity that we're doing at the Social Housing Action Campaign. So just to introduce myself, my name's Suzanne Mooney, as you can see on the screen. I'm more or less a full-time volunteer with SHAC. Prior to that, I worked for about almost 20 years actually with the regulator for social housing. It originally started out being called the Housing Corporation and got changed lots of times after that. I was also a trade union representative there. I was never on full facility time. Sadly, they kept making me do a proper job at the same time. So I was a working rep and served as branch secretary of the Unite Housing Workers. And it was actually that work, it was the work that we did across the Unite Housing branch, because that represented members working mostly, it was around 700 organisations that we have in our branch, and it's mostly people working for housing associations as well as some umbrella bodies. And then I was also one of the founding members, out of that, founding members of the Social Housing Action Campaign. And just to explain what that is, we are started out really as a network of tenants, residents, workers, activists in housing associations and cooperatives. We're now a standalone organisation, although we still are very closely aligned with the Unite Housing Workers branch, which obviously represents staff in these organisations. And the aim of our group is just really to improve the lives of people living or working in housing associations, reducing the commercialisation of the sector, and our demands are really around genuine tenant and resident involvement and democracy, improved repairs and maintenance programmes, reduced rents and service charges, better health and safety provision. That's still a massive issue. It's not just sort of fire safety, but that's still quite a big part of it. And an end to the exploitation of housing workers. So we've got quite big aims, really. Just putting housing associations into the picture of provision, because although social housing can obviously be provided by councils, and quite a lot of councils are now outsourcing to housing associations. In some cases, all of their development is outsourced to housing associations, and quite a lot of the homelessness service provision is as well. Actually, they're very, very different, obviously, beasts. I think we've got a cat on the line somewhere. But they're very, very different, obviously, to, you know, the way that councils operate, the structure, the accountability, everything is very different in a housing association. The sector itself, housing association specific, owns around 3 million homes. They employ about 150,000 workers, so they are a big employer and have a collective surplus of around 4 billion, which is probably the main difference with councils, in that they are very, very rich. They're asset rich, and they also tend to be cash rich. The public perception is obviously still that housing associations are kind of true to founding principles, providing good quality housing at rent levels that were considerably below prevailing cost, and therefore accessible to the majority of working class people. But as the cladding scandal is showing, and ITV Housing Stories, which has focused on housing associations, and various other sort of media attempts to really expose what this sector has become, it's been a real rude awakening for a lot of people who really thought, you know, the cladding scandal, for example, people thought they were moving towards home ownership, and they've ended up really trapped in very dangerous buildings. These organisations are no longer exclusively or even majority providers of social rented or affordable rented homes, and we will unpack those definitions just in case there's anyone who's not clear about what those mean in government terms anyway. Housing associations increasingly focus on building for outright market sale. Most people don't realise this, and are gradually converting the lower rented properties from cheaper to more expensive rent levels. So almost every time a tenancy ends, they will look at making it a higher level, a higher rental income. And property lawyer Savills noted the amount of housing associations generated from new open market sales, so this is at full market price, increased 16% from 221 million to 161 billion between 2016 and 2017. So that was in 1 year they highlighted such a massive jump. They're much more focused on property development. They use the excuse, if you like, that what they're doing is providing, you know, housing that will help fulfill or help address the housing crisis. It doesn't at all. And I think a lot of councils genuinely believe that that's what is going to happen when they create contracts with these organisations, but it really is not what happens. And the boards now are very, very, if you look at the members of the boards, there will be people with backgrounds in development, in all of the commercial activities associated with that, rather than with delivering services to communities. Peabody, for example, total of 13 members on the board plus the CEO. They've got one tenant, one resident, and just one of the remaining people has no kind of obvious ties to finance and investment companies. So, you know, I won't go through their CVs, but it's worth looking at just the members of the board. What this trend, just to kind of conclude on this really, what this trend produces for tenants is that inadequate repairs are increasingly inadequate. The repairs and maintenance service Residents often left to living in conditions that really would have shamed a Dickensian slum landlord, you know, terrible conditions in some cases, very high rents and service charges. We know people who are being threatened with homelessness, not because the rent is too high, but because the service charges have jumped so much. And we've seen that particularly since 2016 when rents were pegged, at least social housing rents. The cladding scandal, the service charge scandal, and aggressive rent collections and evictions from non-payment. A housing barrister we work with has said that housing associations are amongst the most aggressive of all landlords. The kind of campaigns that we get involved in are, we've, for example, done a flag campaign where people are hanging flags from their balconies and windows saying Clarion see us, hear us, to try and get Clarion's attention. We've got L&Q Fix Our Broken Homes. We've got a Hyde petition against very high service charges. So those are the kind of campaigning activities we do. We don't do individual advocacy and representation. We're really a campaigning organisation. And we think one of the most important things in terms of our demands is important thing is to control rents and to look at rents as in terms of affordability, not compared to, you know, the measures that they use, the 50% or 80% are obviously relative to full market rents. We think they should be relative to people's average wages. As well as that, mass council house building, bringing repairs and maintenance back in house, much tighter rent controls, stronger legal rights for and access to justice as well for tenants and residents, the rights to democratic decision making by tenants and residents, and a much stronger regulatory environment. We've seen that chipped away over the last few years. So we get involved in campaigning. It can feel like a David and Goliath fight, but as that fable showed, you know, sometimes David wins against Goliath. It is possible to win victories, and it's well worth doing because obviously it makes such a massive difference to the lives of the people involved. So we would definitely be very happy to work with anybody on any campaigns that are around housing associations, and I'm very happy to take questions, although obviously that's up to the chair how much time you've got. I understand you've got a very packed agenda, but I hope that was a useful insight anyway.
That's great, thank you very much, Suze. We've actually got more time than usual because I was just emailing Sharon. Maybe she's having some IT problems, Sharon from the London Tenants Federation. Maybe she can join us later, but I've got a question. If I put myself to the front of the queue for questions, I was really interested to know exactly with your campaigning, how many people have you got helping you carry out your campaigning? And you'll see later on why I'm asking these questions, because I'm really keen to kind of piggyback on activity. But if you could tell me maybe about one particular campaign that's been really successful and how many people were helping drive it, and perhaps a little bit about how long the campaign was active for. It'd be really good if you wouldn't mind just giving some examples.
Do you want me to answer first? I'll take other questions
please.
And roll them up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, in terms of how many people do we have campaigning, at the moment, we've got about 5 different individual groups, mostly organised within a landlord. So we've got Shack at Clarion, Shack at Hyde, Shack at L&Q, and so on. We're just about to start one up for Housing for Women, which is really shameful given how small they are. Those groups are then run more or less, I would say in most cases, by about 6 or 7 people from within that landlord. So they drive that campaign then. What we bring to the table as Shack is campaigning experience and knowledge. I mean, that's where my background is. That's what we bring. They bring the knowledge of the landlord and obviously the willingness to really effect change within that landlord. So they do, you know, they run their own campaigns. So if you look on our website, you'll see the different campaigns that have been run, and you can see, you know, sort of what the tenants and residents. Hexagon, for example, another very small one. At the moment, they're just looking at building their numbers. So they've got postcards made up. They're going to go around door knocking and things like that. But Clarion, like I say, they had this sort of flag campaign. We did a One Housing Group guilty protest where we sort of held a kind of mock court outside their head office and things like that that people got involved in. In terms of a successful campaign, we've actually just started a rent and service charge strike group, which was a new development just over the last couple of months, really, bringing together people who are either already withholding part of their rent or service charge in protest, or because they're not getting a particular service that they were being charged for, or wanted to start doing that. And that already, I mean, we set the target date of the 1st of July for anyone who was wanting to start that. And we all have already had 2 big victories from big landlords. One was Clarion, where outstanding repairs to like, for example, fitting a new gate to their estate, Clarion had refused for the last 5 years, has refused to do it. Within 2 weeks of getting the letter saying that there was a rent strike, they are now fitting that gate. And One Housing Group, it was dissatisfaction with the way that a complaint had been dealt with, and they gave him an enhanced compensation, you know, way higher than they would normally. So that, in terms of the tactics, that is absolutely the most successful. It is also the hardest one to get people to agree to take. They have a lot of anxiety around it, although we've been very careful, obviously, in how we manage that strike so that nobody is at risk of eviction.
Yeah.
We wouldn't allow that. But so in terms of successful campaigns, you know, that's probably been the most successful, but it all adds kind of collectively to a pressure, you know, the Clarion flags and things like that, they all add to a pressure on the landlord. We've worked with ITV on supplying some of the interviewees for their stories. So it's all really helping. It's quite hard to measure. I mean, you know, to measure success in terms of like A follows B and you've got a cause and effect. But yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of the rent strike, we have been able, because the landlord themselves has acknowledged that is why they you know, they're responding.
That's a great
Sorry,
example.
a very long-winded response.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you. Gul, you've got your hand up.
Yep.
Please go ahead.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you for excellent presentation. Actually 2, but one is very quick. The first one is general understanding. I might be wrong with that. I heard it is very difficult to deal with a housing association when it comes to essential issues like repairs, housing conditions, all that kind of things when compared with the council, because, you know, council may be slow, but at the end of the day, you have councillors you can write, you have several departments you can write and complain. And I was told that when it is a housing association, at the end of the day, it often goes to deaf ears. Is it true? This is one. And basically, what can be done about that? And the second one is, it is more direct. Have you got any interactions, any connections with London's Rentals Union, of which I'm a member, and they are doing great campaigns nowadays, mostly against private landlords, because it's their first priority, but they are slowly taking on the housing associations, particularly against evictions and so on. So do you have any kind of contact with them? Thank you.
So go ahead, Chair. Are you happy for me to?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
The sort of housing associations versus council, I mean, it really goes to the heart of the problem, which is around accountability. There is no organisation that is capable of making a housing association accountable. The regulator isn't, the housing ombudsman can't, the courts can't. We had, again, from our housing barrister, did a presentation to us called The Scales of Injustice. And he talked about having to go back in time and time again, even where the court had issued an order, having to go time and again back into court to get that actioned. And the housing associations will just say, we'll pay the fine and we'll do what we want in our own sweet time. Nobody is going to force us. I mean, there was one example from the housing ombudsman where they fined a housing association, which was quite a small one. Its turnover was 17 million, which is not massive. But a turnover of 17 million, they got a fine of £100. It makes no impact. You know, it has no impact whatsoever. So you're absolutely right. I mean, councils, there are, I mean, however imperfect any of us might feel that they are, they have lines of accountability, and that's what's missing from this sector. So no councillor going into thinking that you're going to sort of make deals with these organisations. They'll talk to you while they're wanting the development and the planning permission. They won't talk to you when it comes to, I mean, we have councillors and MPs getting in touch with SHAC saying, I'm trying to get hold of this organisation and they're just not responding. What do I do? So we hear the frustrations from them. The other thing is about sort of campaigning with other organisations. And again, this is something hugely important. There are lots of different organisations in campaigning on housing associations, each with different specialisms. We do have an overlap with LRU, and we do work very closely with them at head office level and at local level. So, I mean, they are a great organisation. They're very open, very non-sectarian, and we like to think of ourselves as being like that. So we work with them, with Shelter, with Acorn, with lots of different organisations. So, and we know that LRU are setting up new branches and things like that. So we have collaborated on protests, and we would do so in the future. Yeah, I think you're right that they are a good organisation to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Barbara, you've got a question for Suzanne.
Yeah, I have 3 questions.
Oh, God.
I wrap them all into one. Do you have any campaigns ongoing in Ealing? And do you find that tenants' powers are reduced where an estate is sort of mixed ownership? Some rented, some owned. Because we have in Ealing, we've got the South Acton estate, which is a mix of privately owned and shared ownership and rented. So do you find those are less amenable to campaigning work? It probably makes a difference. And the last one is, again, this kind of is a question relating to South Acton. There used to be a big community there, a big Somali community, which has obviously now been split up all over West London. Do you, in your group, in your residents, are there lots of people from minorities? Are they represented?
Yeah, some challenging questions today, some good stuff. In Ealing, the only one where we've had any dialogue really has been around, I think you've got Notting Hill Genesis there, but we've also got Catalyst is obviously, and our branch represents Catalyst workers. And, we work with some of the tenant groups there. We don't have a specific group for Catalyst. So if we had a large enough group of tenants come forward from Catalyst, we'd be quite happy to work with them on setting up a SHAC Catalyst group, or working with them in other ways. That's not the only way that we can engage with them. In Ealing, we do have members who are based in Ealing, but it's mainly from Catalyst and Notting Hill Genesis housing associations. Where there are mixed estates, it does. I mean, undoubtedly, for people to make contact and build the group, it is much easier where you've got a cluster. So if you know that the entire estate is being run by this housing association, rather than there are a mix of different housing associations and a mix of different tenures. Some might be council, some might be outright, sort of bought their homes and things like that. That can make it much more difficult. We just have to try and get the message out in as many different platforms as possible. So, using social media, using postering, using leaflets and things like that is the only way that we can do it, rather than just trying to rely on one method alone. But that it is definitely easier where we know that everybody's together on an estate. So it's only contacting people that makes it harder. We do find communities are very supportive of any campaigns, and probably the minorities one. I mean, if you look at the work we did, for example, supporting Tower Hamlets Community Housing Association, one of the poorest, many Bangladeshi, very, very poor part of the country. And we've done a lot to support them. In fact, they've got a protest going on today, and I'd be there if I'm down in Bristol, but if I was up in London, I'd have definitely gone along. But we've given them a lot of support. So, again, that's the beauty of working in a way that is very, very grassroots, that the tenants, we're not saying to them, we know best, come to us, we'll tell you what to do. It's very much sort of collaborative approach is that it obviously gives a voice to minorities, and that is reflected on our committee, for example, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that answers any of your questions, but more than happy to follow up on any of this stuff outside of the meeting as well.
I think it's London and Quadrant that has the South Acton. A lot of the South Acton is London and Quadrant, and I've dealt with all kinds of inquiries from there, and my hands have been tied partly because it turns out they're living in it's owned by the housing association, but they've bought a flat within it, for instance.
Yeah.
And then of course they're leaseholders, and that's a whole different different set of rules they have to abide by.
Which is unique to Britain. I mean, and it's just such a scam. The whole leaseholder scheme, which is being through shared ownership, is being very heavily pushed by government at the moment.
It's not an alternative. It's not very good.
The worst of both worlds, and we would really advise people against it. But we can understand why people take it up, because it might be the only way that they can get a home.
Ever get some capital? Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Sushi said about there could be a Shack Catalyst group for Ealing, and I've got some contacts there, so I might make some investigations. That'd be really interesting to set that up. Definitely.
It would be really useful. I mean, are these people who work at Catalyst?
Yes.
Okay, because okay, I might contact you.
Yeah, I mean, we're in contact with the workers because Unite represents
the workers
at Catalyst, and I think possibly Unison do as well. I think, but Catalyst, I think they recognise Unite, but I mean, it certainly hasn't stopped Unite doing what it does, really. So, yeah. So I mean, any connections like that, really happy to speak to people on whichever one. And it was that thing about bringing, particularly at One Housing Group, actually, because there's quite a big issue with fraud in that organisation, being able to bring the workers and the tenants together, pool intelligence, pool their actions, coordinate their actions, has been extremely powerful. We've just, got results that we would never have been able to get just by working with one group or the other. So that sort of unity, and of course, it serves the landlord, doesn't it, to have people divided into workers over here and tenants over here. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Suzanne from anyone else? No, I think that's it. Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. That was really interesting.
Good.
Yeah, it's so good to hear about all your activity. It's really impressive.
I'll pop our website. And then, if anybody wants to have a look and see what we do, you're welcome to do so and get in touch.
I've actually got your website on my screen. I'm going to show it at the end of the meeting because I've got some ideas on how to kind of piggyback onto your activity. So I'll show everyone that at the end of the meeting.
Brilliant. We're always happy to have people sort of spread the word, really. So yeah, do let us know. Keep in touch. Let us know how you get on with any of your things, and yeah, definitely get in touch if there's anywhere we can help. So
brilliant.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye bye then.
Bye. So now we're going to move on to an update from Ealing Council. I did see Ray Wall popped in, but now he's gone, which is a shame because I was really pleased. He's got a new role to do with housing. I can't remember his new title, but I do see that Councillor Chitale Munro is here. So thank you very much for joining. Chitale kindly came to the last meeting and he gave us an exciting update saying that there was going to be a consultation to do with a housing plan in Ealing. And then he was going to give us an update at the next meeting. So Chitale, would you be able to take the floor and give us an update?
Well, there's two updates I want to actually give you. One is Ealing Council is consulting on extending its licensing scheme for private landlords and HMOs. We did one 3 or 4 or 5 years ago where it was only 5 wards, because under government's regulations, we can't do more than 20% of the borough, to bring them under regulation. We're now consulting on increasing the number of wards so that private landlords have to be licensed, as well as the smaller HMOs, because as you know, the smaller HMOs don't need planning permission and can often just turn a house into an HMO without any planning permission. So what we're trying to do is in the key wards where there is an issue with that kind of, shall we say, substandard accommodation, we are looking to license and bring the standards and the quality of accommodation up to a level which is suitable for people to rent. We can't prevent them turning into HMOs, but we can actually compel them to be licensed and to be checked in terms of safety, etc. You know, carbon monoxide monitoring, electrical certificates, health and safety, all the usual things that landlords often don't do. So that's one which is going on. I think the consultation finishes on the 2nd of August. We've been talking to people about that. The other one is we are progressing towards consulting on the new local plan for Ealing, the full local plan. So it's not just housing, but it's the whole sort of planning framework that the local authority would follow. There's been a new London plan, which obviously we have to give some attention to in terms of we have to follow its guidance in terms of our local plan, but that is ongoing and we are consulting. We will be later on this year having more meetings. Our local development advisory panel will be meeting, and then we'll have people coming in and sort of giving us their views on what the future Ealing looks like in terms of planning, but that is ongoing. So those are the two really sort of updates I wanted to provide. We are also about 80% of our way through our target of 2,500 genuinely affordable homes. And what we mean by that is Ealing Council, we decided that we couldn't accept the government's definition, which was 80% of market rent, or sort of the kind of affordable shared ownership ones that they talked about. So we're only measuring ourselves against what we call genuinely affordable rent, which is London affordable rent. And now the mayor's changed the definition to social rent, which is less than London affordable rent. So from 23 onwards, we would be providing social rent, which is like council rent really. So we did look at London living rent, but that is also a product that we're not really sure of. Some shared ownership houses can be affordable as long as a person earning about a third of spends a third of their income of that. So there are some sort of definitions around how we get to this really genuinely affordable homes, but we are absolutely aware that a lot of the stuff that the government says is affordable is not affordable for our residents. So we have been working on that. Our target is 2,500 by 2022, and we're around about 80% of the way there. So we are working towards that target.
Okay, thank you. Could you maybe give an update also, because now Peter Mason's the leader, there's been a change around as well. Could you maybe update on Ray Wall's role and your own role? Because I think
actually, yeah, I think you may be mistaken for Councillor Lauren Wall is now the cabinet member for genuinely affordable homes. So there is a cabinet portfolio emphasizing how important we think this work is in terms of the council's sort of our manifesto commitments. So she is a cabinet member for genuinely affordable homes. Councillor Ray Wall is now the new chair of Ealing's planning committee, and my role has changed to be the cabinet member for what we call good growth, which looks at the policy around regeneration, planning and other sort of areas in a policy way, rather than actually, I was the chair of planning where we put the policies into practice, but now hopefully I get to help set the local plan for Ealing in the next 10 years or so as we go through that process.
Okay. Before I open up to questions, I just wanted to ask you something specific that you were very keen on when we discussed this at a previous meeting, and it's something that could be implemented very quickly, and that is planning information in community languages. Are you able to give any update on that? Because, you know, it's something that could be done so easily. So the thought of more consultation for that, and also how can we do any consultation if that isn't in community languages? I just think it could be something that is such a high need for Ealing and such a simple solution to help with everything moving forward. Is that not possible to have planning information in community languages?
I haven't heard that demand. I mean, it's the first time I've heard that demand.
No, we did discuss it before, and that was one of the things that you said you were very keen on and you wanted to...
Sorry, I'm trying to remember.
What do you mean by planning information?
Any sort of planning information, whether it's a poster on a lamppost, if it's information online. I just think particularly with so much building activity in areas like Southall, that it's such a simple thing to do, isn't it? You know, I can't understand why there is this barrier of, okay, behind, you know, all the politics of everything, but the fact is it's so easy to have planning information or information about consultations. And, you know, I don't need to tell people the amount of people who live in Ealing whose English isn't their first language. It should be a basic right of any sort of information about planning should be in community languages, and I just don't understand why we can't move forward with that.
I think some of it there's obviously, it's got to be in the right legal language, for instance. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our acts of parliament, they quote the Country Planning Act section, whatever, for planning permissions. I mean, I get your point. I'm wondering whether, I think the council stopped doing posted planning planning notices. I wonder whether they should go back to that and then include information in other languages with that.
Look, I'm aware that there is this issue around how we consult. We will be looking at how we do that, but at the moment over time there's been cost cutting at the council, and one of the measures that saved money was to put notices up on lampposts near an application site, rather than send letters to everybody. That I know many community groups have not been happy with. It's something I need to look at as we move forward through the local plan and whatever. But at the moment, that is the position. And I'm not in a position at the moment to say how we would move forward in terms of community languages. I think that would be a really fairly difficult. I think you misunderstand how difficult it could be to actually put that into practice, because some of the documents are massive and long, and how many community languages and all the rest of it, it's not something that's so simple that you think.
Yeah, but I see it as making a start. Of course, you can't use every single community language, and some of the vocabulary is going to be very difficult to translate. But I view things in making a start and translating some information into Punjabi and then rolling it out, rather than this huge, you know, where are we going to start? That's how
I mean, can I give you some examples? When we've done some of the CPZ consultations, etc., in Southall and other places, if people feel it's important enough, the response rate we got on some of those consultations was 85%, 90%. So I'm not sure in a first instance, if it's that there is a lack of understanding. It's sometimes people are not interested. Often we get nobody replying back to sort of planning sort of consultations. And I'm not sure that's a community language issue. Sometimes I think it's around how we make people sort of bring people in and actually make them understand how important it is. So they do know
why
that
things like in
they
shops,
don't always want to take part.
but I think that should be part of in shops, when people go to local shops, and then the people working there should kind of engage the people and kind of break it down and say, are you aware of this development going on? Because there might be people who do respond to consultations, but they are the one, it's on their radar the whole time. They might be particularly tuned in and plugged in, but that doesn't mean then that the consultation ends with because you've spoken to those people. It's about the entire community, the people who don't realize who need break.
So understanding that, sorry, can I just come back to you? Understanding that, we have now set up what we call a community review panel, where we're setting up, we have a design review panel where it's the architects and the experts who look at planning applications and give us advice on those applications. We're now setting up a community review panel borough-wide, which will also look at planning applications. And these are just normal members of the public that we're recruiting from everywhere and hopefully helping them with some of the understanding and training. And we're trying to get a community view on many of these applications that are coming forward. And that's going to be part of the process. So we do understand sometimes we don't get the view from the community. So we are trying to put processes in place that gives us the ability to go out to members of the public who may not have any sort of say, because the problem with planning applications always is, if it's right next to you, you just have, many people have a view one way or the other, and you don't get sometimes a balanced view coming forward. But by having a community review panel where people are drawn from all parts of the borough looking at an application, we may actually get a more balanced view of what that application looks like and what the issues are with it. So we are looking at how we put more processes into place.
Okay, Barbara, you've got your hand up first.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I will lower it so that you know that I've had my chance. Yeah, I just wanted to say, we talked about the numbers on the housing list, housing. So there's 2,000 units.
No, 2,500 that we're getting.
2,500 even, yeah. So the housing list at the moment is 10,000. So I think 2,500, obviously that sounds great, but there is so much further to go.
Understand, but in every single application we put forward, many of the people are always opposed to any sort of development in the borough. And there's always some reason or the other that they don't like it or they don't want it. And it's a very difficult issue to try and resolve. It is one of the biggest problems. People understand that there's a big, massive waiting list, but often in certain areas, they'd rather stick with what they've got because it's a nice area and they don't want any change.
I sat in on the meeting about those towers that are going to replace Percival House. And one of the big debates was, we need more affordable units and this whole pepper potting business. I think people would be more amenable to, I think would find less opposition to flats and tower blocks if they knew it was actually going to make a difference to
well, 50% of those homes at Percival House are affordable.
Yeah, but it's that very broad concept.
Well, no, I'm sorry, that's not the case. I would urge you to look at what that means. Look at the report that's publicly available as the application, and actually, because I've done that, and people miscategorize and frankly, it's propaganda goes out there saying they're not affordable. If you look at it and actually just see what it says, London affordable rent is affordable. Yeah, absolutely affordable.
But only 10 minutes ago, you were saying how that's been reframed now to be more, a genuinely affordable.
Sorry, London affordable rent's always been affordable. That is the most affordable housing rent product in London. Okay. That if you don't call that as affordable, then I don't know where we go from there, because that is the most affordable product that there is in London. Most people can afford it. The next one that comes up was London Living Rent. And we've now realized that London Living Rent has an issue around it, which is you take it and you're supposed to save money for 10 years and then try and become shared ownership. After 10 years, it becomes a shared ownership product. So to stop that happening, what we did at Percival House is change our definition a little bit and go for quite steep discounts on market rate, which are there for life, perpetuity of that.
So they don't get bought. These places don't then go to the private market.
The discount carries on forever. So we're learning as we go along that maybe the London Living Rent product is not as affordable as it could be. There is a demand for it, but we wanted long-term the ability to have that flat at a very deep discount available for our residents for the future, foreseeable future, forever, as long as that flat is there. So in Percival House, some of the flats that are provided at affordable rates are with a very deep discount, and they'll stay there forever. And therefore they will be affordable in the long term. And 50% of them is what is available. And I think that's the reality.
What about the pepper potting?
That is a difficulty again.
Yeah.
I mean, people need to understand, housing associations, other RPs do not want to take flats which are all over the place, because they have to manage them, they have to maintain them, they have to agree costs, service costs that people pay. And it's very, very difficult to persuade RPs to take pepper potted developments. That's the reality of it. They don't want to take them. So,
but you're the council.
Well, we can't force
the recommendation. Well, the recommendation is that pepper potting improves.
It does.
The area for everyone.
So on that site, there is pepper potting, but not in every single building. But the whole development consists of private, shared ownership, London discount rent, and London affordable rent. So that development will have, and all the facilities are shared. There is, and
hopefully the quality will be the same throughout.
The quality will be the same, and all the facilities are shared by all the residents in that area. So we've tried to do what we can, but I have to be honest with you guys. Pepper potting is a brilliant idea. I've tried to put it into place as chair of planning, but often it's very, very difficult because housing associations refuse to take any properties which are pepper potted in the way that most residents want it to be.
Libby, you've got a question.
Right, you said about the translations. There is some redevelopment going on the 2 tower blocks on Steam Road, Horn Lane in Acton, and the Somalis do not know what is going on there. So it would be really good if at least you could, where you have a group of people who all speak the same language, you could at least focus in on that one group in that thing. And they have a real problem. They don't know what's going on. They don't know that they're going to get their playgrounds built over with tower blocks or anything else. So that would be a good thing. The second thing, I think yellow things on posts are really good. I understood it was the developer's duty to take it down once the planning had been granted, which they don't do. But why not do it further and wider and just get the developers to pay for it as part of their deal? We know, I mean, I know how many million Berkeley made last year, how many billion shares they sold. They are making a lot of money out of us, and you're not charging them enough for it. I feel quite strongly about that. I can send you the shareholdings, the profits made by probably most of the housing associations and the developers in this borough, because we're tracking them, and they are quite honestly disgraceful. And for a Labour, supposedly socialist council to put up with it, keep it ashamed of yourself. I didn't want to go on to Percival House, but actually, even your rents, your London affordable, you have to be earning something like 50,000 to be able to afford them. But that's not the point. The real problem with Percival House is it is not suitable for children. Your first document can't build enough playgrounds on site. Your first document had 60-something places where they could play. 98% were lies, because they either weren't in the catchment, which is 300 or 400 meters, or they didn't exist. One of them was in somewhere like Peckham. The other one was somewhere else. It was full of lies. So your second one you put 7 playgrounds that were supposedly closed. 2 of them, again, did not exist. They were private property. All of them, apart from one, was over the 400 metre lane. Another one you had to pay to get in. So that was 4 out of the 7. The 2 playing fields, one was Durston, which is a private school sports ground, which you are about to give planning permission for people to build on anyway. And the second one was Ealing Cricket Club. So to knowingly build somewhere for children when you know that there is not adequate play space around, quite honestly, is a disgrace. And I feel Labour Party people are feeling that you, as a Labour Party, are not doing your job.
And there are no schools.
And better
See,
schools.
You can't win. Let me explain what the rationale. It's amazing. If you do it one way, you get criticized. If you do it the other way, you get criticized. At the planning committee, the application was deferred because the criticism was there was no family accommodation on that site. It was only 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms and studios. Okay, so most of the protesters were complaining bitterly that there was no family accommodation. When it was explained to them that the council, when it allocates properties to people, actually takes into account their family circumstances and allocates people the right type of accommodation to suit their family needs. So 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms, there's a 62% on our waiting list need 2 bedroom properties and 1 bedroom properties. About 30 odd need family accommodation. So the scheme was criticized by many people that it didn't have family accommodation. The reason why it didn't was because we were aware that there was, in a city centre locations, families don't often want to live. Other types of families prefer city centre living, and families with children want garden space and open space to live in. But so we were criticised bitterly that there was no, so it went back, the developer looked at it, the criticism from the planning committee, and put in some 3-bedroom family accommodation. But we are aware that there was a lack of enough amenity space, but it's made up in planning terms, there's mitigation where they pay for us to improve open spaces nearby so that people can use open spaces. Now, it is a balance. All of these things, as I always say to people, there's a balance. There's good and there's bad in every application. No application can deliver every single thing that the protesters want, because that in reality, in the world, that doesn't happen. But we do need those affordable homes. So therefore, when we allocate those affordable properties to people on our housing waiting list, our housing managers know that they got to give them to people who can actually live in those ones properly. And that's the rationale. We do allocate people according to their family needs. We wouldn't put a large family into one of those 3-bedroom homes where we know that maybe there may not be enough play space, etc., in that area. So that's the reality. I don't know what more.
Where families grow and have babies.
Yeah,
they do, and they move.
No, they can't.
They don't move. They can't move because
I'm
it's
really
their
sorry,
waiting
we
list.
can't. The planning system and the council can't determine every single outcome in the world, can they? I mean, if families choose to make a different choice, we can't cater. Now, if we give a family a 1-bedroom property and they decide to have 4 children, we can't control what they do. And therefore, then they're living in an overcrowded property, and we have to try and find them a
and they wait for 7 years,
which matches their family's needs. But we can't control that. We can't build something which takes all factors into account. It can't.
That's not my argument. My argument is, why did you lie in the planning application? But that's not what this means.
I'm sorry, that's a completely outrageous remark. That's a completely outrageous
tenants here. And so we'll stop on that one. But there is a problem with what you're doing and the housing you're building, like the Somali people in Rufford Tower who don't know what's going on. And Toby is quite right about the languages. Like what happens when there's problems in the council housing, like on South Acton Estate at the moment with the demolition, and nobody's taking ownership of it. Well, Josh Black has just taken ownership of it 4 days later, but none of the councillors answered any of the emails. There's real problems there. There was problems there the other week when the lift broke with 13 stories and they had no water either. And it's just not fair. And I just don't think, there's no, people phone up the councils and try to phone up the emergency line and they get the telephone put down on them and they don't get any help from it. And that's where the problems are. There's that, and there's the translations, the language.
So now we move to a different ground, criticize every time everything that the council does.
Good things.
If you don't win on one, you start on another one. That's fine.
Cool. You've got a question.
Hello?
Hi, yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, yes. First of all, it is some sort of a follow-up from where Libby left. And thank you, Libby, and thank you, Councillor. which we of course understand council cannot control everything. And obviously you cannot predict every single outcome. We are all agree with that. However, we are seeing regeneration projects. I can only talk about the Ealing Council because this is my experience, but I know the same thing is happening everywhere, particularly in London, everywhere in London. When you start with a regeneration project, everything is so beautiful and so rosy, and all the developers comes and they do their presentation, and every single resident will have a property plus maybe 20% or more. I might be wrong with the calculation, for other people who desperately need housing, which is fantastic. Everything starts like that. This is how it happened. And then year after year, the product, the number of the flats, the number of affordable flats, or the proportion left for the resident, existing residents, shrunk and shrunk. And time and again, my colleagues and myself, we asked, land doesn't shrink. Something is shrinking because suddenly the developer comes and say, and in this case, it is A2 Dominion, also has a housing association. We don't have any more 1-bedroom flats. We don't have any more 2-bedroom flats, enough for the existing residents. We seriously do not understand how does it shrink. And the explanation is, well, to deliver what we promised is no longer affordable, financially affordable. So it is not financially affordable for the developer. And developer is not taking any chance, any risk, anything at all. This is prime property, this is prime land. It is an excellent location and everything. If I make an investment and if something goes wrong, the markets change and everything, I cannot go back to that company and say, sorry, I lost money. I take that losses. Why the developers are not taking that losses and it is back to residents? Why doesn't council have a right just to say, look, you promised 121 bedrooms, I'm just making it up, 502 bedrooms and 50 family houses. Why can you not develop it? Why don't you ask that questions? Why don't you keep people responsible, accountable?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I'm talking about the A2 Dominion, the new regeneration Green Land Lane Estate, precisely.
I'm not aware that they've reduced numbers. I don't quite understand. There is, I mean, people are aware there is in council housing, there is right to buy where we have no control. Tenants can buy their homes under the right to buy, which is a Conservative Party policy that's been running for many years. We lose about 100 properties a year to right to buy, where they get £100,000 discount free of charge, and then they buy it at a much cheaper rate. So we lose 100 properties a year in Ealing to the right to buy. So yes, affordable housing is shrinking because the Tory government chooses to carry on with that policy, and we lose those affordable homes forever to the council. They become landlords and then they're let out at highly inflated rents in the private market. That's why we formed Broadway Living. So any homes that we build under Broadway Living don't have that right to buy enshrined in it. So that's one of the reasons why the council set up its own building company and our own RP to manage some of the homes that are being built. So we've got a housing provider now. We don't have to rely on housing associations to do it. We can do it ourselves. So that's one of the reasons why we've done that. There was no other reason other than to stop losing homes. We built one in Petts Hill. We built about 9 homes, family homes. And within the first 3 months, one of the tenants exercised their right to buy. And so 3-bedroom home, brand new, went private immediately after it was built and occupied by one of our tenants. We can't prevent that happening. So that's the reason why the housing numbers shrink every year. We don't build as many as we lose at times. It's very, very difficult. So we are in a very, very difficult situation. I don't know about Greenman Lane. I'll try and find out what that issue is, but I'm not aware of it.
Thank you. I totally understand what you are saying, and it is definitely not a council problem. It is not an Ealing Council problem. It is a government policy. There's nothing you can do about it. What I'm saying is Ealing Council's agreement with, and I do appreciate you don't know about that particular story, existing residents, and there are only that many numbers. I mean, they don't shrink either, or they do not increase. Our promise, everybody who
Perhaps you should write. Perhaps you would write to me. I will investigate and I'll come back to you because I'm not aware. I'm really sorry.
Thank you so much for that. And I repeat again, it is not an Ealing Council problem. It's going all around London. So it is not particularly Ealing Council did that kind of thing. It is a general policy, but thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Before we move on to Carolina, onto a lighter subject, the Green Doctors, I've got one last question for Sheetal, hoping he might, well, it's not a question, it's a request. I have tried so much to invite developers to this meeting, and for example, Peabody, who used to have such a good reputation, and I just wanted to invite them to this meeting to talk about the Green Southall development and engaging the community, and I cannot get them to engage with me. And it would be so good if we could just have a contact with a particular person, or Sheetal, if you could request someone attends and copy me in. It would be so good just to have one developer come to this meeting. And yes, are you able to do that perhaps?
Yeah, perhaps if you would email me, I'll come back to you.
Yep.
Then. Yeah,
that would be great. It'd be really appreciated, because yeah, I think we just really need to have a developer at this meeting, and I've tried so hard, and it would be really great if one could attend. So thank you. But thank you very
Peabody
much.
Housing Association. So,
Pardon? Sorry?
Peabody are a housing association. They're not. I mean, they're developers, but they're not. In a sense, they're a charity. They don't make.
Yeah, but they've been the developers for the Green Southall.
Yeah. Yes, they are. But they are a charity. They're not.
Well, supposedly they used to be a very well regarded charity, but
they still are, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Catalyst has, I think, a charitable arm and a developer arm.
Yeah, but Peabody, I think, are just a charity. I mean, they make housing for affordable rent virtually.
Doesn't stop them from being a developer, obviously.
No, they're
obviously not.
Anyway, let's move on to Carolina, who's going to talk about, thank you very much, Councillor Sheetal. It's very appreciated that you attend this meeting, so thank you. So Carolina from Green Doctors, an energy saving initiative for residents in Ealing. Would you like to give a quick update about that, please?
Yes, I have a quick presentation. I know I need to be quick, so no worries. And I will send them this. Just it's mostly to follow the talk, and I will send like a little bit longer presentation to be shared with the attendees. So thank you, Toby, as well for inviting me today. My name is Carolina Castilli. I'm the Senior Outreach Officer for the Green Doctors team at Granwell, London. We provide free energy advice to eligible residents in different boroughs. We work with with housing associations that we were talking about, very interesting, and people who private rented, people who live in as well in temporary accommodation, people who own the house. As far as the people are paying for the bills, so the bills are under their name, gas, electricity, and water, we can help them, and we cover Ealing and Hounslow. So the Green Doctor Service is a team of energy advisors and has been running in London for more than 15 years. The aim of our project, so it's a holistic approach on how to help vulnerable residents in terms of the energy. So first, well, we are in summer, I think the hottest week maybe of the summer, talking about cold, but the first aim is to try to help residents understand why it's important to live in an affordable warm home. And the negative impacts of the cold homes in winter. This will lead as well to help residents to maximize income, because a lot of people don't know that they can pay less to have the same energy. I heard the conversation about residents that maybe the English is not the first language, so we help a lot of these kind of communities as well, and maybe they don't know that in here, you know, you need to shop around in terms to find a better deal for energy and this kind of things. And the main idea as well is that the residents, after, at the moment, telephone consultation due to the pandemic, we are looking to come back to home face-to-face visits soon. They can take action in the future and how to manage better the energy bill at home. So we are trying to help to tackle fuel poverty. And again, the presentation that I will send to Toby is a little bit longer, so you can read a little bit more about that. I'm happy to do a longer presentation in the future. For you to have an idea, only in England, around 4 million households are fuel poor. So it means that they're really struggling, mostly in the winter, to pay the energy bill. So you heard that, you know, every winter there is a lot of residents that they need to choose between fuel or food, most during the last winter due to the pandemic. So this is almost 20% of the household. This information is for 2019, so was released this year. So we don't have none of the data regarding the COVID pandemic and fuel poverty. Of course, the cost of living is rising in general, most in London. You were talking about rent as well. That is a big issue for families with low income. And the price of energy is of course going up. So the main causes of fuel poverty are, as I mentioned, the fuel cost, the energy efficient in the house, so when the house is not properly isolated, and the income of the household. The good thing is there is help available for free. So the Green Doctors offer free phone consultations at the moment, where we help residents. It's really a one-to-one and tailored consultation, depend of the needs of the family, of the residents. So we help them on how to save energy in easy ways. For example, to understand why it's important to don't use the kettle with a lot of water. What is the temperature of the washing machine that better for you to use? All these kind of things. The idea that people, you know, moving forward to the future, they learn on these things how to save energy. We help residents as well on switch energy providers. We provide unbiased service advice, so we don't work for any energy company. So we explain why it's important, and we help them to understand what they are paying at the moment. We help residents as well with debt, always related with gas, electricity, and water. And I have to tell you that in the last 6 months, since the last winter, we come across a lot of people who are really a lot of debt in energy, gas, electricity, and a lot of debt with water as well. So people, you know, maybe families that they were full employed before the pandemic and now they are on furlough, or, you know, some of their family members lost the employment, and, you know, they are struggling to pay the bills. When we help residents with the debt, is good because really it's a life-changing opportunity for some families that, you know, they can write off completely the debt. We help people as well to apply for discounts that they will be entitled, like water discounts, warm home discounts, priority service register. So there is this pot of money waiting to be claimed for residents that meet the criteria, and the idea is to help these residents to apply for that. If I mentioned, this is holistic approach. So if the resident come to us and, for example, they have problem to pay the rent, or they feeling isolated, or for example, they don't have food, we can signpost them if they agree to other organizations. Could be a food bank, could be I don't know, mine, Ealing, you know, if people feeling has a mental issue. So the idea is to help the residents to, you know, improve the well-being in general. There is eligibility criteria, so at least one person in the house need to meet this eligibility criteria. So it has to be in low income or in receipt of any means of tested benefits. Anybody who has a long-term health condition, could be physical or mental health condition, people with disability, older people 65 and over, and household with children under the age of 5. We have our flyers translated to 6 languages at the moment. So I'm happy then through Toby, or you can contact me to send this information, and we can provide the telephone consultation with translation. With translator will be in a 3-way call in any other language. So that has been very, very useful as well. And I know you were talking as well about that a minute ago. We accept referrals for organizations, or we accept self-referrals as well. We have a website, and again, I will send all the information to Toby to be circulated. We have a form that doesn't take more than 2 minutes to be filled. It's a very, very, very easy form. And we have as well a free telephone number. We are aware that a lot of people is digital excluded, so maybe they know about the service for a friend, family, or you know, a community organization. They can contact as well in our free telephone number. We can offer as well community energy talks aimed at residents. So if you think that, you know, the people that you support will be, you know, will be happy to have a chat about energy. And the idea of the community talks is, of course, to talk about our service, but to show people that there is easy things that they can do, you know, like for example, switching provider. The idea is to explain a little bit how to do that, for the people to understand tariff, what is smart meters, all these kind of things. And we are happy to tailor the sessions to a short session or a long session if you want. Okay, and we are, yes, so sorry about that. So we are working in a more inclusive presentation for people, the English is not the first language, and as well for people with disability. So we just have this presentation ready to go. So just is a couple of slides. So yes, if you think that is something you will be interested in, you know, happy to have a chat with you in the future. Okay, so.
Thank you very much, Carolina.
On a rush. Yes, I didn't like to overpass my time, but yes, happy. I don't know if somebody has some question. I think some familiar faces.
So nice to see those flyers in community languages.
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
Hi, Shannon. Yes,
I do have a family with a special need child. Hopefully, they will be able to benefit with your service. And could you send me the latest flyers so I can forward it to them? I do have few families with the special needs children. So,
yes, definitely.
And
I will send them.
You as well. You help me because I have a disability, and all the energy service is in the process at the moment. So I was just thinking of you 2 days ago.
Good.
Thank
yes,
you very
we'll be
much.
working together.
And,
yes.
Your services has helped so many people. I introduced your services to so many people in last year during the crisis period, and still we are helping people with your services as well. So please send me the latest details so I can also forward it through the WhatsApp as well. So it's easy access for people to see that as well.
Yes,
so
no
plenty
worries.
Plenty of work for you.
Thank you. Yes, Toby, sorry, as well you were saying, yes, we have translation, and I think it has been very, very useful. And we can offer as well if people prefer, because they were talking about the Somali community. We work very close with Somali community, for example, in Hounslow as well. And in some situations, the residents prefer to have a translator for their own organization. You know, this is sometimes varies, so we can offer as well a 3-way call who a member of the community or a family member or a carer that the person prefer to have, you know, present in the consultation, either if they are not in the same house, so we can do as well a 3-way call.
Brilliant, thank you. Chantal, you've got your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah,
Oh, that
hi.
is-
So I just wanted to ask, first of all, do you ever do home visits? And secondly, do you recommend people who can work in the home who are trusted? Because the biggest issue you find normally is that people don't know who can do the work trustworthy and actually is not going to sort of cheat them or not do the work properly. So do you have trusted people who carry out the work, and do you do home visits? Because I'd be very interested if you would send me some of your stuff to maybe see if we can't try and expand that service in Ealing a little bit more.
Yes, definitely. Yes, I will answer to your question. We work on behalf of the council in Ealing, so definitely I'm happy to send you all the information. We don't, I mean, if the people has to do specific work in the house related with gas, electricity, or water, we do not have, we don't do the work, and we do not have, you know, people who we can recommend. So, you know, there is some website that the people can check, but this is not the aim of our project. So the aim is mostly to help with the small measures, like will be draft proving, a shower head, these kind of things. Regarding the visit, I need to divide the answer in two. Before the pandemic, our service was face-to-face. So we visit the residents, one were referred to us, previous, you know, booking the appointment, and the green doctors will install, again, the draft proving, the shower head, the LED bulbs, all these kind of small measures. At the moment, we stop the visit. We are doing our risk assessment, and we are looking at to come back to home face-to-face visit. I will, as soon as we have this information, I will send it to Toby to be circulated. But, you know, if anybody like to have my email or, you know, like to be in touch with me as well, Toby can give me my information, and I will be happy. I usually send a follow-up email, so I will send to Toby with all my details, and happy to have a chat with you as well, Counselor, in the future.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
Helpful, yes.
Yes, definitely, by all means.
Cool, you've got your hand up.
Yes. Thank you, Carolina. This time it's not a question, just something quick to say. I'm a professional translator and interpreter. So in Turkish, if you have any documents, leaflets, banners, or anything you need to translate into Turkish as one of the community languages, I will be more than happy to do it free of charge. So Toby has my
Nice,
details.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, and we can
Wonderful.
be in touch. Thank you. Yes, great.
Right, I've got one last question from Shanji, and then I'm going to do a presentation about a new website. So Shanji, if you got a question.
Yeah, we did have a visit from the Green Doctor. They are really very good, I mean, professional, and they take consider anything they need to look into, everything into details, and even they leave their number. So if there's any extra point, we need to call them and tell them again to fill up the form, and they look into, they really work professionally. And I worked with them over more than a year now, and it's a brilliant work they're doing. To the Ealing Councillor, I would like to say, we as a Sunshine of Hounslow serving communities in Ealing area as well. I mean, there are families of 4 living in 1 bedroom under the council properties. I mean, because they are living there for too long, also the pandemic as well, the domestic violence is increasing. Is there anything is getting done about it? Because people are there for too long in 1 bedroom with the children. I mean, then the domestic violence starts. What we doing about it? I mean, it's really getting, it's difficult for us organizations to keep supporting them in each and every way. And sometimes the universal credit stop or they cut down, and the people are really struggling. not only the domestic violence, the mental health is also in the highest increase at the moment. People who are living in one bedroom, a family of a 4 and a 5 as well.
So that was your question to Councillor Chattal, was it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think that was a bit general. I really don't understand. It's not particular. Is it families in Ealing or families in Hounslow? I don't quite work out if it's in Hounslow, how I can be of any help.
No, I mentioned families in Ealing.
Fine, but it would be helpful if I had some indication of where or when. I can't do anything unless I have an understanding of what the issues are. Maybe you should write to me with those examples that you have.
Could you put your details in chat box as well, please, so we can contact you for the...
Well, you just get me from the website. Our Ealing Council website has all my contact details. Everything is there, available, publicly available. My phone number, my email address, everything's available.
Shelley, you've got a question. Sorry, I know we're bouncing around, Councillor Chattal, but Shelley's just got one question, and then I'm going to show my new website. But Shelley, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Toby. Councillor Munro, if I may just, I'm sorry to return because I think Toby missed noticing my hand up earlier. I just wanted to, because I'm the sort of nominated solutions champion on the board, if I could see a way forward and just mention a couple of points, please, very briefly. Regarding the languages, if I could suggest that, where there are, if there was a threshold set, so where there are applications for a development proposal of more than X number of units, whatever you might regard to be the appropriate amount, that's where it kicks in to translate in other languages. Secondly, if I may suggest also, please, you mentioned the very good schemes about affordable renting or affordable purchase. I think in the community, people aren't really aware, of those qualifications, the eligibility criteria, the thresholds. And I think it would be very helpful if the council does have those schemes in place to raise awareness about that, so that people at least knew what was available in the community. And finally, if I may just mention, going forward post-pandemic, I think that there needs to be a lot of creative thinking. I think the council might benefit from, if we were to outside of the box. There are a lot of government schemes, Toby may vouch, I have done a lot of research, and there is legislation in place for local authorities in terms of investment vehicles, which really could help the local community post-pandemic. And perhaps, if there was some thinking engaged in that area, in that regard, then maybe we can all help come together and sort out some of these society's ills, which clearly that's our intention. That's why we're here. Thank you very much, Toby.
Happy to look at that, but I'm not sure what you mean by government schemes. If you could maybe write to me, because I'm not aware of what you're talking about, and it'd be helpful if you could elaborate, if it not now, offline. You've got my email address. I've spoken to you in the past many years ago, but I'm happy to have a meeting, happy to try and understand what it is you think we're not doing, that we could do better. I'm always available, so ring me or email me and we can meet up, and I'm happy to take it offline.
Will do, thank you.
Okay, lovely, thanks. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Just to give the context to this, in fact, I'll share my screen first rather than me trying to explain. I can simply share my screen. So we're back to this project, and in year one on the Ealing and Hounslow CVS website, I built these pages, which was all about the project, its aims. There was a video there of me explaining it, and then when you clicked on the toolbox icon, we went here, there was all about this, the Community Advisory Board meeting, information about housing contacts for Ealing and Hounslow and other important information regarding housing. There's also all the training that we carried out over the past year. That it's all been recorded. There's links to it so groups can go to this, and also, or individuals, if they're interested in any of this training, they can teach themselves or revisit it. There's information about Ealing's housing policy and all this information here. But now we've come to year two, and I'm thinking we've got all this information, but how do people know it's there? And it's kind of tailored towards housing groups who we probably, Ealing and Hounslow CVS, have very good relationship with, and we can highlight things in newsletters, because we've been working a lot with groups and hoping they will then cascade information down to service users and encourage them to come forward and feel empowered with housing issues and for their voice to be heard. Now, I was thinking this information is kind of hidden on our website, and what we need is something a little bit more user friendly and something that people can, the average person would understand a bit more, so they don't feel so hesitant about moving forward and their rights and getting their voice heard. And I think we need to go back, when we say campaigning, this project isn't so much about this project campaigning, well, me campaigning myself with other support of other people. It's really about empowering residents, average Joe blogs, being able to campaign. And when I say campaign, it's making sure their voice is heard. So it could be, when we say campaigning, it could be something on Twitter, it could be sending a letter, it could be an email, but people don't really know who they should be sending it to and what are their rights. So I thought what we need to do is have a standalone website and make it more user-friendly, give it a brand. So it could be something that people come across and it's all there. So I'm being a bit of a web boffin and enjoying the design side, I've produced this, built this. Now, it's actually designed to go on a phone, so you don't get the full, because it's easier to scroll through on a phone, because so many people, and obviously I'm showing my laptop, so you can't get the full, but I can send out links if people want to have a look to it, and particularly on their phone, let's see how it works. Now, so first of all, I've given it a name because everyone wants a nice, you know, a brand pitch, people improving together, community housing. Picture the roof, and we've got you know our logo, so we know who we are, funded by Trust for London. And then we've just got some pictures of some residents. So there's housing advice groups, housing campaigning groups to join, start your own group, build your confidence and develop your skills, and a few other buttons here. But those are all the things nice and easy to look at straight away, and using language like build your confidence rather than the term advocacy, because you know I don't really like the word advocacy because it's used in so many different places, and you know what exactly is it? Where, as you say, build your confidence doesn't need any explaining at all. Develop your skills. So for example, someone would come along to this website and click on develop your skills, and then I haven't finished writing all the details here, but then they can click on all the training, and I'll give it a proper description of what it's about using the right sort of language. And what I'm also intending to do is run, here I've got just pictures. These are people I'm going to be doing some more training in September, and it's really giving people more confidence to campaign and to have that confidence to move forward and to know about organisations like the one that Sue's is from, Social Housing Action Campaign, and also earlier in the year we had a presentation from Housing Action Southall, Southwark and Lambeth, because once they know about these groups, we can piggyback on to all their activity now, and things can grow. So for example, so I'll have people, they could be either people who volunteer at housing groups, or they could be service users. And I'm hoping to have about 20 people, and I'll work with them to do the advocacy training, which is basic confidence building, and also learn about campaigning from the Social Housing Action Campaign, from Sue's. And then these people will then in turn share their insight and knowledge with other people, because on this website it's going to have a chat room so people can talk to one another, and I'm gonna populate it with housing contacts, know your rights. Now we've got a lot of this information already on the Ealing and Hounslow website, but CVS website, but I wanted it in this standalone one, so it's just a nice little, all there at someone's fingertips. So as soon as they click on the site, they can find out local other groups to join, or they might want to connect to others. That's in the chat room that I'm going to build in that. They can look at our training, develop skills. Perhaps they might want to come on this training program that I'm going to work with them and see how they progress with their campaigning. They might want to join a national group, a local group, but all the information is here. Now I'm going to try and find a volunteer. If you know anyone interested in volunteering, then please get in touch with me, who's going to also liaise with all the people on this website. So this means that this project could then continue. We've got funding for this till next April, but as this is up and running, with volunteers, it can continue on for year after year. This can run far into the future as soon as the funding for this finishes. So also help promote us. So when people are going to do the campaigning, a great way is through Twitter. So make sure people know how to use Twitter, because when they carry out any campaigning, housing campaigning, they're going to do the hashtag pitch housing. And so that means that basically when we look at the Twitter site, perhaps in next meeting, we might want to look at it, we can then review all the campaigning activity. Everyone out there who's looked at this website, they found tools, they found information, they've gone on Twitter, they've tweeted things, they might be tweeting the council, they might be tweeting a developer, and all their voice is getting out there, they're using the hashtag, we'll be able to see it, and also other people out there will be able to see or promote the site, and it will snowball. More and more people will know about this site, and the whole time will basically be copied in because of Twitter. So we'll be able to see that. So that is the plan. So I'm at the point now, obviously I've got to populate this website a little bit more, but I want to make sure that people know how to find this site. So I've done a very quick survey. Here it is, the 60-second housing survey. So I'm going to send this out to everyone, and I'll send it to you guys, and if you can then send it to anyone. It's so quick because it basically says how long you've lived in the area, what problems do you think there are in relation to social housing, have you ever emailed the council or made comments on social media expressing your concerns, are you part of any tenants and residents association, are you part of any housing group, if you wanted to make known your thoughts in relation to housing issues, do you know how you would make them, or to who? Yes, no. If there was a website that gave you all this information, i.e. the website that I've just built, as well as knowing your rights in relation to housing, would this encourage you? And then I'm planning to copy this link onto all Facebook neighbourhood websites in Ealing and Hounslow. But I'm not sure if everyone's is connected to that, because what I want to find out really is where we should promote this new website so residents can use it. So someone might answer these questions and they might say, oh, I never go on Facebook, you should do posters. Perhaps I might say posters in different languages. So this is the point of my survey, is to make sure that when this is fully launched, that I'm going to post links or people know about this site so they can then go on it and use it and start campaigning. Oh, that was a very long ramble from me. So has anyone got any questions about or thoughts or comments about my new website? And I see it's just gone bang 5:30, so I have rambled, apologies. But has anyone got any questions or thoughts about my new website?
Well done, Toby. You always work very hard. Could you please send us the link so we can also look into it and see how we can join in as well, please? It looks very inspiring.
That's good.
Very good. Yeah.
I'm pleased you like the look of it. I wanted to make it really nice and user friendly. It's, you know, websites have got to entice people, haven't they? They can't bombard people with information. So
it looks brilliant.
I'm pleased.
Housing champions. We need housing champions.
We certainly do.
Yeah. On estates, people who know.
Yeah. We need to do.
I have someone in mind, but she works full time. So I'm not sure whether she lives on the Copley Close estate, which I think could do with some, you know, some good. These people can be the channel between developers or the housing associations, the council, and the residents. Yeah, that's what we need.
Okay then. Well, I shall then draw this meeting to a close. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Very interesting as usual. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, particularly Councillor Chantal Munro. We really appreciate you coming along. And thank you very much to all our other presenters. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting in October.
It's a different world, October.
Certainly.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you, Toby. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.